YouTube, welcome back to another video. We're back with another Q&A, question and answer, and I'm going to be tackling your questions that you've submitted to me through Instagram. So to kick us off, the first question is, what would you do with £50,000 in capital? Now, my answer to this, of course, when I received this question, the first thing I think about is there are so many variables here, because one person with £50,000 wants to quit and leave their job. The other person with £50,000 just simply loves their career but wants to make investments on the side. So this is very, very subjective to the position of the person asking this question, and I don't have more detail around it. So therefore, I'm going to try and give you kind of a multi-purpose answer. So to start with, if you are the person who is trying to get into property as quickly as you can, quit your job and go full time, then your focus is definitely going to be different from the other person. Your focus is going to be about how can we make a quick cash on that cash, basically. So straight away, I would be discouraging you from doing a turnkey buy to let. I might even discourage you from doing a standard BRR buy to let setup, because at the end of either of those, all you're going to be left with is kind of £250 in cash flow each month. And that's hard to get excited about when potentially you might be on £2,000 a month, £3,000 a month, £5,000 a month, doing all that work, going through that process, taking 6 months, maybe 9 months to do one BRR and only earning £250 profit per month if everything goes to plan. It's just not viable. So instead, what I'd be trying to focus you around is what can we do in order to make money back quicker? So I'd be suggesting that you do a flip with that capital, either to build the war chest to further tackle more properties in the future, or simply because if you can go out there, put that £50,000 to work, and you can make £25,000 profit off of putting that 50K to work in property, well, all of a sudden you might have nearly replaced an annual income just by doing one flip. So if you can do that, then you've got that proof of concept that, yeah, I can leave my job because I'm able to do one flip or two flips and so on. The other thing I'd be heavily suggesting that you do, if you're out there, you're viewing, you're making offers, you're building that skill set of finding great deals, the other thing I would have to suggest is to try sourcing properties. So sourcing, flipping, then further down the line, once you've gone full time in property and you've kind of made a business out of that, maybe you can then start to build that portfolio using that £50,000. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of rent to rent, so I don't really suggest that as a viable option to start. Going over to this guy, the other person who maybe is working, wants to invest on the side, I still would recommend a flip if you can, because to build that war chest of capital is ultimately what you want to do before you go spending lots of it on buy-to-lets. You ideally want to get it from, let's say, 50 to 70 or 50 to 80K. Then when you go and do a BRR and you leave 10 or 15,000 pounds in, you've still got enough money to go again and go again. And the longer that you can build that war chest in the beginning, well, the further you're going to be able to get when you actually go to buying properties. And that's something I wish I had probably learnt sooner, whereas I got my first small amount of money and I just started buying. But reality is you work with the hands that you're dealt, and you kind of learn to build skills around that, which is what I did. And now I have the knowledge to be able to give advice to someone that maybe has £50,000. But with that information, pick your avenue, go with what suits you best, and I'm sure I will see you in the property game very soon. Question number 2, Justin, how are you planning for the 2030 EPC regulation changes? Now, a quick bit of history for anyone that's new to this. The government have previously tried to roll something out that's similar to this. I think it was the year 2020. They proposed that by 2025, they were going to be rolling out new EPC regulation changes to say that all properties nationally had to have a minimum of an EPC C rating if they're going to be rented out. And this sent landlords into chaos, of course, because a lot of properties that are owned in the UK are older properties, period properties. They might be 100 years old. They're not cavity wall insulated, and many of them are an EPC D rating, not a C rating. And of course, landlords were having to think about the additional expense and everything that it meant for them. Did it mean selling? Did it mean upgrading the property? What kind of disruption is that going to cause to the tenants, and so on? But the long and the short of it was that the government were not able to get anywhere near close bringing that in by the 2025 deadline. In fact, early 2024, they announced that this is going to be cancelled in the run-up to the re-election of the government. Now, With that being cancelled, it was only a matter of time before they were going to postpone it, put it back and put a new date on it, being the 2030 deadline. So how am I planning to tackle this? Well, I am planning to tackle it in exactly the same way that I approached the 2025 EPC regulation changes. And I approached them like they are unlikely to happen, because I can't actually control whether it will happen or not, and because I do believe it's unlikely to be rolled out nationally and across all different types and ages of property over the next 5 years. I think it's a massive project, especially when you factor in the additional variables of the property, but also something such as the change in government, which will happen once again in approximately 4 to 5 years, and then they'll probably just postpone it again. A bit cynical, I know. But instead, I try and focus on the things that I can control. I try to buy better quality investment properties, and I try and build in the cost of upgrading them to an EPCC during my refurbishment. So if I can do that, it all works out numbers wise, it's still a good deal. And any properties that don't meet the EPC rating, well, I'm going to deal with them closer to the time. And if they actually roll out the changes, then I will make those upgrades to those properties. Next question, what is your motivation to continuously build and progress? And I just have to start off by saying I love this question because I like talking about mindset. I like talking about motivations, the things that get me up and out of bed every day. And realistically, I break this down into this answer into two categories. My kind of selfish answer, the things that I do for myself, and then also the other side of it, which is the family side of it, which ultimately is the bigger pillar and the driving reason as to why I work so hard. But let's start with me being selfish, okay? I am so motivated to build and progress because I really want to test the limits of what I'm able to do. I want to see what I'm able to be able to accomplish. Me as a person, I have quite a busy brain. I'm sure a lot of people do, but the way in which I am able to control my busy brain is by putting it into focus areas. And I think actually in life, that's where a lot of people are misunderstood. When people have mindset trouble, or when they have trouble perhaps overthinking or depression and different things, I think it's often because they don't know where to put the time and attention and focus of the different compartments of their brain. Obviously, I won't go into that in too much detail because I'm sure there's a lot of different avenues we could take that conversation. But I know for me, I have to be building something. I have to be progressing with something. That's where I derive excitement, enjoyment, and that's where my interest lies. So it's very easy for me to get up every day and be motivated because I know I'm working on something. So selfishly, I just want to be able to see what I'm able to accomplish and I'm able to build. Also selfishly is I think a lot about Justin at 42 years old. So 10 years from now, giving my age away there, but 10 years from now, when I'm 42 years old, what does that life look like? Well, I probably don't want to be hustling as hard as I am now. I probably want to be spending half my year abroad in the south of France with a whiskey and a cigar in the evenings, or walking along the seafront with a nice sunset in the distance. And in order for Justin to achieve those kind of very, I guess, partly materialistic, but partly just lifestyle focused goals, I have to put in the work today. I can't get there in 10 years time and think, oh, I wish I had that. The work is now, and then I get those rewards of doing that. I've time and time again been reminded of that because when I was 20, I was putting in the work in a very different way, and I saw rewards from that when I was 25. Then when I was 25, I was putting in lots of work and I was thinking about how I can leave my job, how I can invest in property, how I can do this, that, and the other. And here I am now at 32, having been able to do that. I've left my job, I've got a property portfolio. I ultimately have control over my life. So I know if Justin does the same thing again, if I double down again, I put that work in, I know Justin at 42 will go, oh, good job, Justin, that was really worth doing. So selfishly, I think about that, and then I try and balance that with just having a good life in the moment. I want to make sure I get away 3, 4, 5 times a year to see different parts of the world. I want to spend time with my partner. I want to spend time with my friends. I think, as you can tell, it's just such an easy conversation for me because I have so many different motivations. I was lucky enough to be brought up in a family where my grandfather just had a love for life and family. My dad had a love for life as well, and he worked incredibly hard. And I feel like I have that same passion and love as well. Talking about family, okay, and talking about where I've got my values from, well, I want to be able to pass the same on to my future family. I want to be able to build a foundation. I want to be able to give them money, enjoyment, and the experiences of life that you don't get, unfortunately, if you live life on the breadline. So I do a lot of this for myself, but I also do a lot of this for other people because I really want to be able to get to an older age and see the fruits of my labor and be able to pass that on down to members of my family, whether that be my brother, whether that be my partner, whether that be nieces, nephews, whoever that is. I want to be able to pass that on and share that with them. I'll just quickly end this topic by saying one thing which hopefully you can take away, and that is that whether you're planning to go far or to get to success in property or business, if you look at those that have been able to achieve it, it's because they have a very, very strong reason as to why they're doing it. Okay, yeah, we've all heard all that we need a good, strong reason why, but no, legitimately, you need to understand why you are getting up every day to do this. Because if that's not a strong reason, it just won't happen. It's quite that simple. You need to really ask yourself that question and go a few layers deep. You know, why am I doing this? But why do I need to buy property? And really push into that, because when you truly understand that in your mind, then you will have no need to even ask me this question. You know, Justin, why are you so motivated? Because you'll just understand that if you know what your reason why is, the motivation's there. Next question, I've run the numbers on buying a buy-to-let property, but when I factor in the mortgage arrangement fees, the cost of interest and potential maintenance that could be occurred on the properties, I don't think it makes much money. Have I got something wrong? The answer is you haven't got something wrong, you just maybe are looking at the wrong deal, or you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. The truth is that when we buy a buy-to-let property and we put an interest-only mortgage on it, there is costs of doing business. There's a cost to buy the property, which could be stamp duty, solicitors, broker costs, etc., etc. There is also the costs of the debt. So it's not just the interest on the debt, which you're now going to service monthly, but it's actually the cost of arranging that debt. Okay, is there admin fees? Is there a valuation fee? Is there an arrangement fee? Arrangement fee being one of the biggest, and there could be an early repayment charge if you leave too early as well. But the one that you're kind of probably looking at there is the arrangement fee, because if we go and get a property on a 2-year interest-only mortgage, well, within 2 years, we are now going to have to, when we buy it, add an arrangement fee to that debt, because that bit of debt goes on to our overall debt. But now in 2 years' time, we're going to have another arrangement fee when we swap to a new product. And this is how banks or lenders partly make their money. They make it on the interest, but they also make it on the fees around the debt. So if we purely take property from a kind of fees perspective, there are a lot of fees around it. And actually, if you've just got one property and you don't buy well enough, i.e., you know, it's not the best deal in the world, it doesn't rent that well, or it's not making enough monthly profit margin, probably the biggest one, you can quite quickly kind of question as to whether property is worth it or not. So my answer to you might be, you're not doing something wrong. In fact, it sounds like you're actually doing your analysis right by looking at those things, but you need to look for a better deal, whether that means getting something for a lower price, whether that means something that rents for more, makes more profit, whether that means trying a different strategy where they become more profitable, or whether it's the fact that you take more of a bigger picture view. If you just get into property to have one investment, one buy-to-let, it's probably not going to be the most impactful to your life. And I'll be really honest in saying that. You might hold one property, it might make a little bit of money, might go up slightly in capital appreciation, but it's not going to change your life. When I work with people, I say something or a phrase that I call the race to 10. My belief is that we all need to be on that race to getting to 10 buy-to-let properties in our portfolio. It's no longer worth doing it for one. We need to get to 5, we need to get to 10, because there is safety in numbers, okay? If we have 10 buy-to-lets and 2 of them have maintenance problems, well, guess what? You've got 8 properties still ticking away, making money to cover the cost of those maintenance problems. Not only that, but also the other element, I guess you could say, of an all-round property is the fact that we might want to look for something where we can make money on all measures, okay? Not just the monthly profit, but also on the capital appreciation. And I think it's so incredibly important to where you buy, the property you buy, and to make sure you buy with future growth potential. Because if you are buying low-cost housing in an area that hasn't seen growth in 20 years, that property is not necessarily going to do you justice over the next 20 years. No guarantees, we don't know what the market's going to do, but the chances are it's going to make you a small amount of profit each month, and it might not go up in value. And then when you do factor in all those arrangement fees, well, no wonder it's not been that profitable. We have to be smart. We have to work smarter, not harder. Look for the best possible investments. And that means by area, that means trying to negotiate the best deal, and that means going after volume of properties as well. can't be doing this for one. So I hope that helps and gives you a slightly different frame of mind towards tackling property. Next question is, I've got £20,000 in stocks and shares maturing in November 2024. Should I withdraw this, and will this be enough to do my first BRR property? I'll keep this answer fairly short and sweet and to the point. £20,000 probably isn't enough to do just a regular buy to let, you know, kind of buy and hold, let alone try to do the full buy, refurbish, refinance process, you know, deposit down, the fees, the refurb, etc., etc. You really, really need to get yourself a good deal analyzer, a good calculator, because £20,000 isn't, unfortunately, even close to the amount of money that you may need in order to do a deal. Obviously, there are other routes you could take. You could go down the route of trying to get a higher leverage kind of finance. You could try to raise money, but if you're purely just looking to use that £20,000, then you need to use a good deal analyzer, which will show you exactly the amount of money that you're going to need, which even in some of the cheaper areas of the Northwest, the Northeast and Yorkshire that I work in, still require at least sort of £45,000 or £50,000 for some of the cheaper deals. So I'll leave that on there. Get a really good analyzer, work out exactly how much money you're going to need, and then decide what to best do with that £20,000. And that's it for today's questions. Thank you for tuning into the Q&A. I will be doing more of these, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments below, and I'll see you very soon.